So this is how the final low poly mesh looks like. I will comment on each part for now. And so the frame is pretty much the same, but with few exceptions. I've added some more edges right here so that this angle could look like more smooth out here. Okay, so another thing, when you're done with low poly mesh, it is really cool to always use cleanup, as I showed before, so to double check that like every part is okay. So select everything and click apply. It removes the highlight, turns everything like gray. That means it is okay. I'm not sure what those red dots mean, to tell you the truth, but it is okay. So let's go on. And with the slide, I had some edits with the slide. I had to add this part over here because during the period of doing low poly mesh, I noticed that like this part was missing, and I double checked it on the reference, which is right there. Yeah, you can see that like there's no like empty space or a window, so I had to add this thing over here. So I did both things on high poly and low poly. So this is how the high poly now looks like. The edit was pretty much easy. So you go into Boolean scene first, like hide this guy, slide, yeah. So you go into Boolean scene, adjust what you need to do. In my case, I've just moved slightly the face of this box, like to the left, and applied booleans, and did pretty much the same process on this scene. So, and same thing on the low poly. So now it looks correctly. So let's go. As you can see, you can see that the whole gun has 11,000 triangles, which is actually quite okay. Though I went a bit over the top at some places. For example, this part over here, those things are not necessary, but I just thought that they would stand out pretty much better. So like they do create this silhouette, and I think it will look much better with these things. And also, like, I went a bit crazy with like smoothness over here as well as here. Just make sure that you have like corresponding edges that create like one shape, so that like it's not like here the edges are arranged in one way and here they are in another. That's bad. That always sticks to your eye, and you can see that this looks bad. So for this button over here, as you can see, there's only one button, and I went crazy on the poly count for this because it stands out and like it has this exposed edges. So I just had to make sure it's super smooth. And it's only one. On the other side there is no, because we don't need another one. This is a separate mesh. It is not a part of another mesh, so I need only one. And after I'm done, we've done baking, I'll just duplicate it and mirror it on this side, and that'll be enough. Same thing for those pins, like right here and right there. I don't have them on this side because I will just flip them. And that's it. Also, for those holes, I was going to like fill those holes over here just to save some polys, but actually this is not necessary in terms of poly count. And also it'll be much easier if I'll leave those on both sides, so that I can reuse this part over here. So I decided to keep those on both sides. Okay, so what else? Let's go through all the meshes. Oh, and by the way, as you can see, if there is a part of the model that is not actually visible, for example, this like face that faces the gun, you can delete it, and actually you can also delete this because it's not going to be visible. There's not a single angle in which you can spot that hole. It's completely okay. So for example, if you have this button on the other side, there's an emptiness because we don't need to waste area for texturing. So we need to use every pixel on the texture properly, so not wasting any geometry. Also, I'm pretty much sure that I'm going to delete this guy. Just checking. Well, I guess. Okay, for the barrel, I'm not sure. I'll keep this for now. I can just make this island on texture really small, just to double check. I'm not going to delete this geometry, but I'm going to make it really small on texture, so there will be no hole in there. So what else? The magazine. Right, for there's another thing about holes. If you have like this thing with mag, so when you have this kind of situation and right there on high poly there's a hole, but this hole is covered with an actual magazine, so there's no need to model out that hole. I just capped it and it will bake on itself pretty much good, so there's no need to model that. Okay, so 20 pieces, not that much. As well as here, I did not model the hole for this glowing cylinder over here because it will be baked. And for these guys as well, I was not doing this step pattern. I just made it like this way, but I had to make sure that the shading was proper, so I had to add some, not to add, but to play with the topology in order to make sure that the shading looks good, which is, for now, this looks not bad. So you should avoid like big, like those big long artifacts through whole, like through big face. That's bad. Like this shading is okay. So what else? So for the low poly, I guess that's it. So the low poly is done, and now this thing should be unwrapped and packed. But before that, I'll save the scene. Before that, there's one more thing that I would like to talk about and to edit. Let's go back to the high poly model, and I want to create some multiple materials for this. Well, as you can see, also those black materials are result of exporting from ZBrush. I mean, importing from ZBrush. You can just delete those, that's no problem. So I'll create blend material, do different color, for example blue. It's going to be called low 2. Go to another blue material and create another material, which is going to be called low 3. Another material, different color, low 4, and the last one with a different color, low 5, like this. So I have some additional materials. Why I did those? Because not all meshes on the high poly are single meshes. At some places where I'm having like this kind of mesh, it has some extra mesh inside of it. Just searching for an example for you. Nope. Well, actually, another thing to mention. Well, the gun's supposed to have the spring inside, right there, but it is not seen when the gun cycles. So I had no need to model the spring. Okay, so let's go. Right, this place over here. As you can see, we have two objects right there, but they are, where is it? But they are in one, they are combined into one mesh. That's because it's going to be baked on one mesh on the low poly, and the detail from this one and both this one is going to be baked on the low poly mesh. So, which looks like this, right? So in order to do this properly, I want to add some identification for two materials so that I could have an ID map afterwards. So what I'm going to do is to go into face mode and right, I cannot do this, turn off reference. Yeah, now we can select faces, double click on this mesh. You can see that the whole mesh is selected. Right click and apply different material, low 2. Now we have two materials. It's still one mesh, but it has different colors, and I will be able to pick that information on the baking process. Okay, so let's go on. Guess I had more of those. The bullet, exactly. So same thing over here. Low 3 and low 4. Okay, so right, the mag is the same. This one is, yeah, this one's the same. Right here we have this thing. We have a bolt over here. Oh, exactly, the bolt. I did some adjustments to this bolt. As you can see, like the walls of this bolt are tapering towards inside of the magazine, because this like part is going to be barely seen at any like angle. Probably will never see this part of the gun, but still there's a bolt, and I decided that it's better to just bake it out. So when you have this tapering, and if you look like straight onto this thing, you have this transition. And if you had like this straight wall over here, this transition would look like not that good. It will be just straight and the information could be lost. So whenever if you okay whenever you bake something in like bold or cap or pin or whatever, make sure you have some information if you just look straight up onto this. So same thing, let's do this material stuff. Like that. No, actually. I'd better do all different colors. Okay. I guess sometimes I'm just too lazy to do multiple materials and then I suffer from that. Okay. Okay, one last thing over here. As you can see, there's a bolt in here as well. And I'm going to bake it in like this. And now we're done. Yeah, okay. So now everything looks proper. Let's go back to this thing and hide the high poly. Delete history just in case. Save the scene. So okay, now we have high poly ready for baking. We have low poly with proper poly count and adjusted shading with hard and soft edges. The only thing left is to unwrap this guy and pack. Then we're going to bake it. So let's go into the unwrapping part. Okay guys, so before we go into any kind of unwrapping, I want to show you this quick example and to make things more clear. So why we place hard and soft edges at certain areas and how those things are unwrapped. So I'll hide this one. So here are 4 examples. Let me open UV editor right there, so that you could see. Right. Okay, so here are 4 examples. We have 2 all hard edges meshes, and we have 2 all soft edges meshes. So the first example, it is one single UV shell, so no cuts, and it's all hard edges. The second example is the same. We have all hard edges. However, anywhere we have a hard edge, we have a cut on a UV. So it has separate UV shells. Okay. Now we have this guy, which is all soft edges, and it's all on one UV shell. All right. And we have this guy, which is a bit more interesting. This is same, all soft edges. You can see this. And it also on the same UV shell. However, we have a slight bevel over here. So let's go, let's go over shading. So as you can see, the shading is pretty much the same on this and this guy. These two are same shaded because hard edges everywhere. Those 2 guys, so though they are all soft edges, we can see like this really crazy shading artifacts on this guy because normals projecting from each face are trying to calculate the way this mesh should look like. And because there's not enough data, because we have only these faces, it goes like in this crazy way. So and we'll see later how it's going to look like on baking. So right here, if you want to get rid of those artifacts because they affect normal map when you bake, you might like to create a slight bevel. So if you have this artifact, you just add an extra edge loop along like problem face, and you'll see like and you'll see how the mesh is going to like look better, because the transition between two faces is going to be with third face, and the normals are going to be average between those faces, and the result in shading is going to be much better. So this is like advantage of Maya, for example, because in 3ds Max this mesh would still look quite bad, like this one, because Max has different shading algorithm. So Maya is a bit better with this, and that's why I use Maya for my weapons, because the shading is much better. So okay, we have these examples. Let's see how the baking looks on all of them. So these guys are already baked, and this is the normal map. So as you can see, the first guy right here, all single UV shell and all hard edges. And you can see that this is a really bad result, because we have this ugly, nasty seam over here. Because if we have one single UV shell and we have a hard edge along this UV shell, it will always be with this seam. So it is like 100% no for any case. You should not do this at any time. So this is like the main rule: no hard edges along single UV shells. This result is the best, actually, because you have each face a separate UV shell. We have none of those ugly seams, and the normal map looks somewhat like this. We have these two gaps between UV shells. So if you have a 90 degrees angle on your model, you would definitely like to place a hard edge, because if you place a soft edge, you will have this really bad shading stuff. You place a hard edge and you cut it. You cut it into two separate UV shells. That's another like main rule. If you do that, this would look good, and the normal map is going to be looking like this. The third result is obviously really bad, because of this crazy shading. While baking normal maps, the baker tries to compensate this shading while adding the high poly details. So, like, I actually did not show you. This is the high poly mesh, basic cube with like chamfered edge, nothing too special. So the normal map works as a compensator for this crazy, not crazy, but it works as a compensator for any kind of shading we have on a low poly. And then on top of that compensation, it adds the details of the high poly. So you can see that the normal map right here looks really like crazy. We have tons of gradient over here because we have this shading, and the baker tries to compensate that. And this is the result. The result is pretty bad. We can even here see that we have still some kind of artifacts on edges and all kind of stuff. So whenever you have 90 degrees angle, or you have really nasty looking shading, you don't want to leave it like that, because on the baking it will leave you these really bad results. So the final example is, for example, if you want to make this thing like one single UV shell, because for example this is really important part for texturing and you don't want to have this cut on textures. So the way to solve this problem, you just add more geometry. So at this point you can add a bevel over here and you will be able to go with one UV shell. And the normal map would look like this. You still have a bit of gradient, but it's not that severe as here. Now, like in general thing, the perfect normal map is actually this. I would explain you why. So you can see that all of the surface of this face is perfectly colored with the color of background, so there's like no compensation in here. It's just flat information, and the only like color information we have is just on edges. So that's the best result. Why so? Well, because when you, for example, are doing your asset for a video game and you drop your normal map into engine, all kind of engines, they do compressing of textures. And compressing of textures means the quality of this texture drops. And right now, if you do your asset for yourself, it's completely okay. You can go with gradients or something like that. But when you're compressing the texture, the gradient can lose some data. And this lost data on the gradients will be shown in the final look of your asset. So when you don't have gradients right here, it's a flat color. So when you compress your texture, the flat color will still maintain the flat color, and you will not have any kind of artifacts on this face. However, if you have even slight gradient, you might have some problems. This case is pretty much okay. The gradient is really slight, and I don't think there's going to be like a huge visible problem. But if you want to go perfect, this is the way. So like to summarize all of this, those two bottom options are your goes. These are don'ts. That's for sure. Like, don't do this and don't do this at any time. Like, crazy gradient is bad. And hard edge along UV shell is also really bad. So so in this case, when you're placing your hard and soft edges, you also should think how you're going to unwrap all of this. Whether you want to do it in a single UV shell or you want to cut and place a hard edge over there. So you should find a perfect balance between this kind of look and this one. So if you want to place a soft edge between UV shells, that's completely okay, but not the hard edge. So basically all modeling, the low poly, unwrapping, and placing hard and soft edges is a way of finding balance between these two guys. Whether you have a perfectly flat face that is cut from all the sides and it's a single UV shell, it's perfect. If you want to maintain your UV shell, because when you cut your model into a lot of different separate UV shells, it's kind of like hard to texture it because the seams between textures will be visible. So you want to maintain like as much as possible single UV shells. However, you should be able to find this balance between single UV shells and those cuts that you have to put. So like general rule is just put your hard edges and cut your UV shells when you have 90 degrees angle, that's for sure, because even on the high poly you will have this like transition between those faces and it will look really good. So in any other cases, you should think like ahead and try to find this balance between hard and soft edges. So, being said, let's go into unwrapping now, knowing this information. Okay, so for the unwrapping, I'm going to use UV layout, this software, and I'm not going to just like export the mesh into a layout. I'm going to use the bridge between layout and Maya, this plugin over here. This is like really handy tool because UV layout does not support FBX export, and if you export with OBJ, your hard and soft edges will be locked, and when the mesh goes back, you will have to unlock your hard and soft edges, and it will like it will be collapsed. So it is really cool tool over here. So in order to install this plugin, you run the program, click here, and there's a button install Maya plugin, and just select your plugin folder for Maya and click install here. I'm not going to do this because it's already installed, so I'll close this here. So when you have the plugin installed, you have this shelf over here, and the process I'm going to take with unwrapping is somewhat different than other people do, because I could use hard edges on mesh to cut the UVs by hard edges, and then just flatten all the other meshes, not UV islands, right? But I tend not to do that. What I like to do is just go mesh by mesh, select like this guy, for example, run UV layout, set this thing to new UVs, so that if you drop this file into the program, the UVs will be like brand new. It's not going to, if you click edit, and if you have some UVs already, you will be able to edit those. But if you have new, even though if you will have the UVs, if the new is activated, it will collapse your UV and create new. Okay, so anyway, click new and click here, send mesh. What this thing will do is basically send this guy. Make sure you selected this guy. It will send your guy into the UV layout program. Somehow it's taking too long. Right, here we are. Okay, so now you have this. The navigation in this program is quite the same as in Maya. So why I do this, and I will manually now cut all the UV islands. Why I do this? Because I will move Maya scene. Right now, you should not touch this guy. Don't do any adjustments, because if you do, and you will try to send this guy back to Maya, it will fail. So you can select it, but don't do anything else. So what I'm going to do now is drop Maya on my second screen, and in my main screen I'm going to cut this mesh into UV islands based on hard edges. And in this case, I will just double check every corner of this mesh. You can see, like in my process, I try to double check all my actions from previous stage of modeling. For example, when I do retopology, I double check the high poly. So, and you can actually find some errors. And I'm 100% sure that when I'm going to start like UVing this guy, there will be errors. For example, randomly placed hard edge or whatever. There will be problems. So like this process is really useful to spot any kind of errors you have made. So every next stage is going to be double checking the previous stage. The same thing is going to be actually with the baking process. When you're gonna bake, you will also double check the low poly and all the kind of stuff. So right now I'm going to move Maya to my second screen. If you have second screen, please do that. And on my main screen, I'm going to cut my mesh and double check the hard edges on my second screen. So let's start. So if you don't know how to navigate this program, you just it's pretty much the same as Maya. You can place a cursor over an edge and click C, which means it's going to cut at this place. So this place I don't need to double check because it's obviously has hard edges on like on this part. There's a general rule for me: if I have 90 degrees angle between faces, there's gotta be hard edge, because the shading will go wrong. So it's pretty easy. Whenever you have 90 degrees, there's going to be a hard edge. That's the rule. So I don't need to double check this. So at this position, when you circled circled like group of faces, now you can do two things. You can hit D, for example, like this, like hover your cursor over this island and hit D, which will drop this UV island into UV space. Here it is. Go back to 3D, or no, to ED, right? And but if your UV island is not circled perfectly, if there's like one edge missing, you will drop the whole thing. And so to double check this and make sure you did everything correctly, there's another way to do this. If you're like selecting big amounts, like not amounts, but big UV islands with a lot of faces, you can do the same thing and now hit enter. And now you see that this thing like detaches correctly. And now you can hit D like this. So now this is going to take some time. I tend not to start from like some part in particular, just selecting the edges whenever I see those and just double checking them on my in my Maya scene, just to make sure that there's no error and hard edge and soft edge are placed correctly. So let's okay, so if you want to undo this, you click not C but W, which means weld. C for cut and W for weld. So cut this guy and hit enter, drop. So I already found some errors right here. You see this hard edge? I don't need that. Well, it's not going to do some problems actually at this place, because this thing is straight surface. It's not curved or bended or something. So at this point, this is going to be okay. But it is a good general rule to have hard edge only on the border of the UV shell. I guess I was not talking about this enough. Like when you're UVing your mesh, there's a general rule. For example, you should have hard edges only on UV borders, UV shell borders, because if you will have a hard edge within, for example, like over here, like right there, if you'll have a hard edge over here, and this part will be one UV shell. After bake, you will see a huge artifact right there, right at the place of the hard edge. So whenever you have a hard edge, you need to have this edge a border of UV shell. So this is the general rule. However, you can have cuts on the soft edges. You can have soft edges anywhere you want. So like there are different situations. For example, I'm going to cut the handle at half, for example, and I have this like central seam over here and it's soft edge, and it's completely okay to cut it over here. So but when you have a hard edge, you will have to have a separate UV shell for that. So that's like general rule. So at this point, when I spotted this thing over here, and I just can't edit this mesh for now because I'm still doing this guy over here. What I like to do is just to take a snapshot on my phone. I just turn on the camera and take a photo of the screen of this place. So when I'm done and I send this mesh back into my Maya, I'll just take my phone and scroll through all the errors and fix them all, and then just delete the photo. This is like really prehistoric prehistoric way of solving problem, but it's quite easy, and it can solve your problem. It's not that you could take screenshots from your computer, but you have to save that image or something or whatever. But with your phone, it's really easy. So I'll try to remember this because my phone right now is in use. I'm recording this with my headset from my phone, so I'll have to remember this. So let's go on. Make sure you select proper edges right there. So this is pretty monotone work. I think I'll go through the frame with you guys, and then I will speed up the process again because all the rest is going to be pretty much the same. So right there, go back to the second monitor. And there's also like there's always a choice of like a compromise you will have to do, whether you want to place a hard edge or soft edge, because like you could put hard edges everywhere, literally like everywhere, and just cut all of that into like separate UV shell. But the problem is like the best result on the baking you will have only when you have all the soft edges. So well, I will talk about this during the baking process, and I will talk more about the importance of proper hard edge and soft edge placing. This is like really important. So for now, I'm just like will touch the base of it, not without explaining, but I will explain it later, I promise. So for now, just try to do pretty much the same thing here. So like general rule, you have to find a compromise between less hard edges but good shading, like something like that. So you still have to do a good shading, and it comes much better when you have more hard edges, but with hard edge you will have not perfect result on the baking. So you will have to find this perfect spot between those two, and it comes with experience. So well, I guess you can see here those guys right here. We have hard edges over there, and I think I want to do those with soft edges. Okay, I'll try to use my phone because try to not make too much noise with it. Sorry guys if I'm going to do some noise. Okay, so I'll take the shot right there. So, right. So I did this because when I'm done, I will set soft edges on these guys. Okay. Let's continue doing this. Right there. Just make sure you're cutting the hard edges. Also, hard edges is a good tool for logical distinguishing between the parts. Well, I have a hell of a hard edges right there. And there's too much of those. I don't want to cut all of those. I mean, like, it looks... Yeah, I think I will do soft edges over here and over here. So I'll take a photo of that as well. Okay. So drop it. Okay, let's do this side. Pretty sure this side is going to be symmetrical, but I'll cut it anyways for now. I could save some time by deleting the symmetrical part so that I would not spend time on unwrapping the same parts, but it's too risky for me. I like to keep my mesh like in front of my eyes so that I could see how it looks and all that stuff. So right now I don't want to delete this part. However, I will do this a bit later, but on the packing stage. So, and I will do packing in another software. I use UV layout only for unwrapping. This is kind of weird, yeah, right? Because packing is really like challenging thing if you want to use 100% of your UV space, and UV layout does not do this in a perfect way. Actually, there is no like perfect packer still which can do the packing with proper padding and with overlapping UV islands. This is why I'm going to delete symmetrical elements so that they would be unique. Well, but that's a thing for a later discussion for now. So for now I just do this. So as you can see, this thing over here, it is soft edges all the way, but I need to cut this part because it's not going to be unwrapped if I don't cut it. If I don't cut, for example, this trigger guard part. So there is a soft edge over here, but it's perfectly fine to cut it right there. Just try to find a spot that is not going to be that visible when the gun is in use. For example, like this part will be barely seen, so it's okay to cut it there. Because on the texturing, you will have to pay attention to those edges of the UV shell, because sometimes your materials can show some seam over there, and you can see that that is a UV shell border, and the textures are not going from this part to this part like smoothly and supernaturally. So cut this guy over here. Same thing over here. So in terms of time consuming, this process is going to be a bit faster than low poly. It's like a rule, you know, when you do the high poly, it's the longest part, then you do the low poly, which is a bit shorter than the high poly, and unwrapping is even more shorter than anything else. So I guess I'll cut it right there. And I also have hard edges right there. I think I could go with soft edges right there, but I'm not sure. Another good thing to consider is to place your hard edge on actually hard edge of your high poly. So you can go with soft edges right here, but I know just like on the high poly, this edge is distinctive, and like the error of the hard edge between UV shells is going to be hidden with that high poly detail. So it's the perfect like place to place a hard edge. Okay, so drop this, guys. Have a 90 degrees there, so no need to check that part. Drop it. As well. Okay. I'll leave it like this for now. I'm not sure when I'm going to go further with this. So let's go with the internals. Like this. Okay, this looks good. I will cut it in half because I know it's going to be symmetrical. So let's do the same thing with these guys. You can see I'm selecting some other edges accidentally. That's okay. You can always fix that. Right here we have a soft edge, so it's okay to place a cut right there. just selecting those guys, like any other one. Like this. So the internal parts, though I have geometry for those, but for example like this cutout for the magazine, I'm going to scale it really down on the UV space, because obviously you'll not be able to see this part. So I will leave it on my UV space, but it's going to be scaled really low, and like the texture resolution over there is going to be really poor, and that is okay because we're not going to see that part. So okay, one thing I forgot to mention, and when you have like this loop and it's already detached and you want to cut it in the middle, you cut it right there and hold Shift S like this, and it will cut right there. Like so. Let's check this trigger zone right there. How does it look like? We have a hard edge there and there, like this, and we have a hard edge right there going all the way through. All the way through, not this, yeah, this. All the way through here. Okay, this is a tricky place because I'll have to sort out somehow this thing. And I need to think, how is it better to do? What's the best way to do this? I'll try to do it like in this way. Somewhat like this. And like this, and I'll cut it in the middle because it's going to be symmetrical. We have all the soft edges right there. It's all cool to do so. The only thing I will have to make sure that this is going to be properly unwrapped, because the form is quite complex. Drop this guy. Same thing here. This one as well. And there. Like this. Okay, we're almost there. Let's go for this guy over here. Drop it. right there. Okay, let's do this place over here. Do we have a hard edge right there? Yeah, we do. Right there. So far not that much errors were spotted, so that's good. That's actually good. Drop this guy as well. Drop. Okay, I forgot to do this guy. You can see like this long tube over here. I don't need it. I can make a cut over there because I won't be seeing the internals of this thing. So I'll just take a photo of this place because I don't need this. Right there. Okay. Alright, so I guess we're left only with this big shape, so I'll put a seam over here, right there, to make a cut on the top part, and like this, so this will go off, this one as well. So this thing is going to be cut, I guess, like this. Yep. And so for the handle, I am going to symmetry the grip because it is held by hand, and this area is not going to be seen that much, but though this part and this part I want to make unique, so I have to place a cut over here pretty smartly. And to do that, I'll go back to my ZBrush scene and check how the high poly looks like at this place over here. So this thing does not give me that much of information. Okay, let's check the reference. Maybe we can hide the seam with some sort of like, well, not that much. Okay, anyways, it's not too bad, so I'll place the seam right there. Make sure it's same both sides. So we'll do like this and like this, so we have two of these parts separate. And I guess I'll do the seam right there, just above it, yeah. Just above the cut, the hole over there. So like this and like this. So, okay, we're done with cutting. As you can see, we go to UV. And now I'm going to go through each one of those. So for start, I hold F on each UV island, which flattens it right there, like this. Whenever I have like a square form. I try to place my UV islands perfectly straight. So in this case, you can see that this line is not perfectly vertical. I need to make it perfectly vertical, because when I bake texture and, for example, this thing goes left for 1 pixel, it will look kind of bad on the texture. The texture will be looking much better if you have like this like straight line of pixels right there at the edge of this seam, and it will look flawless. So you can click I on the edge, which will highlight the edge with black border, and it will try to straight out all of those edges. But we have this edge right there. I will deselect it, and now hit F again, and it aligns all the straight edges along the horizontal and vertical line, somewhat like this. I hope I explained this correctly. Sorry guys if I'm not doing that too much understandable, but I try my best. So same thing here, like this. So it's like a general rule. Whenever you have like straight lines, I try to keep those straight, even though the others are curved or something. I try to keep these guys straight so that there's like a perfect line of pixels on the bake. Same thing here. This one, I can actually do this. If there's an island completely with polygons, 4-edged polygons without triangles, and so you can hit R and it will make a perfectly straight and correct rectangle like this. And I could do this for this one, but I'm not sure. I think I'll leave it like this, because if I do this for this one, there will be like stretching on the texture and this area, so I'll leave these guys. So whenever I see just like a square polygon, I just hit R. You can see I'm not be able to do the same thing here. I click R and I can't do this because there is a triangle over there. So you can just hit I and do the same thing right here. So this thing, I want to make it like a straight line, and that will be just fine, because even though it's going to be stretched just a bit, whoops, sometimes this program does not understand what I want exactly from it. Nope. Right now I'm holding shift and middle mouse button just to move those vertices. No, I don't like how this thing looks. I'll do Control Z, and I guess I'll unselect this part for now. No, come on guys. And this one as well. Yeah. Now it's making this thing perfectly flat and it distorts. This is a tricky one. I want to make it in a line, you know. The color indication in this program is quite handy as well, because whenever you see red color, it's bad. It means that the texture, the island is really stretched. Come on. Okay, I'll have to do this the long way. So in order to do this in a straight line, just deselect everything and do it in steps, like this. So let's add more black edge like this. Now just straight this guy out like this. Let's continue this thing right there. Yeah, now we have this thing perfectly flat. So in order to check this result, you can actually go into 3D and you can see the green, those UV shells highlighted in green, which means they are unwrapped. The gray means that they're not unwrapped. So you can hit T for texture and see how the texture is actually seen. I guess you can click plus and minus to change size of tiling. So this is what I was meaning. You can see right there, there's a bit of a stretch, but the edge of this part will be looking perfect. I can tell you that. You can see like this fine line of pixel right there. So this thing will look good. Let's go back. Just trying to straighten anything that can be straightened. There might be error at this point over here, at this place. So I guess I'll keep these guys right like they are and do so. Same thing here. Just keeping the straight ones. Now hitting F. This can be straightened completely, I think. This one too. And let's check it out. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. You see this? Perfectly following the shape of the object. Like there's a tiny bit stretching over here, but it's completely okay. It's going to look really good on bake. Okay. Same thing for the other side. Deselecting unnecessary guys and stretching those that I need. Also, if you have like UV shells not curved but straightened, like this one in one line, it saves you UV space, because more like weird forms you have, the harder those to pack. So it's actually a good thing to do. Okay. Like this. This is just straight. I hit R. This is fine. This one is just a tube. Well, I'm not sure. There's another where you can just hold F and wait until this is going to unwrap. You can also click Shift F in order to let the program straighten and flatten the whole UV shell. So Shift F right there, and it tries to solve this UV shell and just flatten it. right there. Yeah, by hitting just F, you're kind of relaxing it, but Shift F flattens. Okay, this is a tricky part. Let me think how I want to do this. Let's try this. Like so. Okay. There's a fireman car just behind my windows. If you can hear this, sorry guys. There's a fire station near my house. Okay, I guess it looks fine. Nope, that was... Okay, no, that's good. Just make sure, whatever, this thing is going to be symmetrical, so doesn't matter to be perfectly same. Okay, this can be straightened. Come on, oh, you have triangles. Right there, same. I'm not sure I want to flatten this. Let's check it out. Well, okay, I'll guess these parts over there, I'll keep those like this for now. No, these guys like this. That's fine. Okay. So let's straighten this guy over here. Like so. Looking good. Okay, they're not symmetrical. We have a cutout over here. Okay, that's not a problem. So this is too crooked. I want to make it straight, square like this one. So I just do some sort of like this. Let's check it out. How does it look like? It indicates that there's some sort of a problem over there, but I'm not sure. Well, anyway, this part is going to be really, really not visible, so I don't care how it looks like. It looks fine for me. So this part is pretty important. This is the rear part. So as you can see, I'm not packing anything right now. I'm just unwrapping, making sure every UV island looks good. Double checking all the errors I might have. Okay. This guy here. Straighten this guy over here as well. This can be this. What? Why? Right. Okay. So there's another cool trick for UV layout. If you see this kind of hole, you can select this border with T. Yeah, T. hold T and move along the edges of this thing, and when you're done, this highlight will indicate that for the program that it should sustain the form of this cutout. So you can see it makes the form look same as on the model right there. So let's straighten those guys out like this. Looks nice. So this can be square like this. Okay, we're getting closer to an end. Okay, so this is pretty tricky part because it has the really complex shape, though I want to have this thing straight, the top part. So let's try and make it straight and see how it's going to look like. How does the result is going to look like. And you see this thing over here. This is where like this T feature will help. It will go back to this initial form, boom, like this. Though it's not helping like 100%, but it solves some of the problem. So I'm not a fan of this area right there. You can also do this trick with this guy, boom, and I guess this guy as well. Boom. What if I try to average it? No, it returns. Okay, let's do this thing here. See how it's going to turn out. Well, no, that one was not good. Okay, so let's check this area. Well, looks kind of okay. Let's check if we have any sort of lettering here. Okay, yeah, we have no marks here. No markings, so that's okay. So I guess this will do. This was fine. Same story with this guy. Let's straighten this guy out, not these guys. I'm just holding backspace and just hovering over unnecessary edges. Same thing with T. Right there. Okay. Let's go with this guy right there. And this little fellow right there. This looks fine. For this guy, I guess I would stretch it like so. See how it's gonna look like. Boom. Yeah, I think it's good. Let's do the same guy over here. Rotate it. In order to 90 degrees rotate a UV shell, you just click the slash button, which is above your enter and below backspace. At least I have it there. So this guy over here. Somehow the program is running slow. I have a lag or something, not sure. Come on. Okay. This guy over here. I'm holding T. Right there. This guy can be done like, no, not like this, but I can cut it and I can straighten it like so. Let's check it out. How does it look like? Well, no, I'm not gonna do that. That looks too ugly for me. So I'll just, no, not even this. I'll just do the T trick again. Yeah. Okay. Okay, we're on the finish line. Okay, this place is the same problem, so let's go T with this and F. Yep, worked perfectly, just as I wanted it. Oh man, yeah. There's another trick. No, not this one. Shift I. Come on. There's gotta be. Okay, I guess there's no other way. So like this. If I hold backspace, I am deleting all my markings there, so the T mark as well. That's okay. I don't think I'll be able to straight out this part, so I'll keep it like this. That's okay. Whoa. Let's try to make this guy straight. Not the best idea. What if like this? And T for the holes. Let's check it. I don't know. No, I don't like the way it looks. How would I just delete these guys? Yeah, I'll keep it like this. Now, two last pieces. So let's go T with this part over there. And yeah, did wrong. I had to select this thing first. Okay, so let's do it again. like this. Now backspace this guy all out. I also would like to do this. Just selecting those parts that I want to make straight, like so, and T over there. Yeah, now it looks good. Same thing with this guy. So let's go I. Okay, now backspace. Right there, and T over here. Okay, so now we're done. Now I just go back all at defaults. It just needed to be in at the same place. Okay, so when we're done, I just click send, and what it does, it just sends this mesh back into Maya. It'll take some time. Here it is, and now just to check it, let's go to UV editor, and here it is. You can see all is unwrapped. Okay, so delete the history, and now let's do those edits. Turn this into soft edge, and as you can see with this plugin with UV layout, you still maintain the hierarchy and all the stuff. It's just there, so it's kind of really handy tool. Okay, make these guys soft. Yeah, the shading looks good. I like the way it looks, and I remember these guys. Let's turn those soft. Yeah, this looks fine, completely fine. So delete the history, and I remember those guys. Let's connect 2 times right there, and if I move an edge right now, it will hurt the UV, it will stretch it. So in order to avoid this, you go double click on the move tool and click preserve UVs. This means that when I move an edge loop, for example, on my shell, it is moving on my mesh, and it is moving on my shell as well. So it preserves that thing. Let's just move it far enough. Right there. Okay. And now we're done. Now let's go into face mode and do this. Delete these guys. That's okay. So let me double check my photos on my phone so that I could make sure I did all those. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are all the edits I wanted to do. So as you can see, we unwrapped first part, and all the rest are going to be pretty much the same process. So I guess I'll speed up from this point because I showed you how I did this one, the biggest one, and the rest is going to be pretty much the same. So I'll meet you guys after the fully unwrapped, and we'll speed down, and I'll do some comments more. Okay.